Hello, Pete's Packs here, and we're back with our second Collector's Edition Commander deck from the Warhammer 40k Universes Beyond set. This is Tyranid Swarm, which is green, blue, red. So with that, let's get into this. Now, something we discovered with the Necrons deck yesterday, the Surge foils do make it very difficult to view the art. So I will be doing a second series of these with the regular version. I managed to get 4 of the regular version and 1 each of the collector's versions of these decks. So, as with the others, we have a token and then foil counters. Everything in here is surge foiled, 4 counters with the faction symbols, 8 counters, they're just foil, 2 more tokens, a foiled deck box, with matching art. As with most foil things from Wizards of the Coast, they are warped, as are the decks, more than likely. But also have a 2-sided themed foil life tracker. And we have insert that has art on both sides of the 2 face commanders. So, no blurb this time around, which is a little disappointing. It is what it is. Guess they wanted to save money on copy editing or something. So, we've got our deck. As you can see, it's warped. This one's not as badly warped as the Necron one was. It does have a very pronounced front to, or top to bottom curl to it. Go ahead and move the wrap in the deck. And the entire deck plus the tokens are all surge foiled, so which is a special foiling just for this set. As you can see, it's very, very shiny. So let's get into the cards. So first off, we've got the face commander, the Swarm Lord, 3 green, blue, red for a 5/5 legendary creature, Tyranid. With rapid regeneration, the Swarm Lord enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. And then Xenos Cunning, whenever a creature you control with a counter on it dies, draw a card. We have Magus Lucia Kane, 1 green, blue, red for a 1/1 legendary human Tyranid wizard with Spiritual Leader. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Psychic Stimulus, tap, add 2 colorless whenever you next cast a spell with X in its mana cost or activate an ability with an X in its activation cost this turn. Copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. We have Gene Stealer Locus, 3 and a blue for 3/3 Tyranid human with Neurotromal Rod. Whenever a creature attacks you, it gets -1/-0 until end of turn. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents, it gets +0/+1 until end of turn. We have Acolyte Hybrid, 2 and a red for a 2/2 Tyranid human with Heavy Rock Cutter. Whenever Acolyte Hybrid attacks, destroy up to one target artifact. If an artifact is destroyed this way, its controller draws a card. We have Aberrant, X, 1 and a green, for 0/0 Tyranid Mutant with Ravenous. When it enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, draw a card when it enters. Trample, Heavy Power Hammer. Whenever Aberrant deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. We have Pure Strain Gene Stealer. Two and a green for a 1/1 Tyranid. When it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Vanguard species. Whenever it attacks, you may remove a +1/+1 counter from it. If you do, search a library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Tyranid Invasion. 3 and a green, sorcery. Create a number of 3/3 green Tyranid warrior creature tokens with trample equal to the number of opponents you have. Trigon Prime. 2 green blue for 4/4 Tyranid. Subterranean Assault. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it and a +1/+1 counter on up to one other target attacking creature. That creature can't be blocked this turn. Venomthrope. 1 green blue for 2/2 Tyranid with flying, death touch, and hexproof. Oof. Goliath Truck. 4 mana, 4/4 artifact vehicle with stowage. Whenever it attacks, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target attacking creature, and it has crew 2. Aether Eyes, 3 and a blue, instant. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Inspiring Call, 2 and a green, instant. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Bred for the Hunt, 1 green blue, enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Hull Breach, red-green for sorcery. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, destroy target artifact and target enchantment. Choose one. Herald's Horn, 3 mana artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. Soul Ring, 1 mana artifact, taps for 2. Ash Barrens, it's a land that taps for colorless and has basic land cycling for 1. Frontier Bivouac, land that enters the battlefield tapped and taps for a green, blue, or red. Unclaimed Territory, when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, taps for a colorless, and then tap, add 1 mana of any color, spend only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type. Cultivate, 2 and a green, sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put one into the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle. Explore, 1 and a green, sorcery. You may play an additional land this turn, draw a card. Farseek, 1 and a green, sorcery. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card, and put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Keep in mind this gets duels. Harrow, 2 and a green, instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a land. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, and put them onto the battlefield. Keep in mind that's just put them onto the battlefield, not tapped, then shuffle. New Horizons, 2 and a green, enchantment aura, enchant land. Enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Enchanted land has tap, add 2 mana of any one color. Overgrowth, 2 and a green, enchantment aura, enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. Rampant Growth, 1 and a green, sorcery. Search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Arcane Signet, 2 mana artifact, taps for your commander's color identity. Cave of Temptation. It's a land that taps for colorless. 1 tap, add 1 mana of any color. 4 tap, sacrifice Cave of Temptation. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. Command Tower. Taps for your commander's color identity. Evolving Wilds. Tap, sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land, put onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Genestealer Patriarch. 4 and a blue for 4/4 Tyranid. Genestealer's Kiss. Whenever it attacks, put an infection counter on target creature defending player controls. And Children of the Cult. Whenever a creature with an infection counter on it dies, you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a Tyranid in addition to its other types. Exocrine. X, 2 and a red, for 2/2 Tyranid with Ravenous. There's a battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, draw a card when it enters. And then Bioplasmic Barrage. When Exocrine enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each creature and to each player and each other creature. Red Terror, 3 and a red for 4/3 Legendary Tyranid. Advanced Species. Whenever a red source you control deals damage to 1 or more permanents and/or players, put a +1/+1 counter on the Red Terror. But keep in mind, this does go infinite with All Will Be One, which I do not believe is in this. Screamer Killer, 4 and a red for a 5/5 Tyranid. Trample. Bioplasmic Scream. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 5 or greater, it deals 5 damage to any target. Biophagus, 1 and a green for a 1/3 Human Tyranid Wizard with Genomic Enhancement. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. If that mana is spent to cast a creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Bone Sabers, 2 and a green, artifact equipment. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Equip 3. Broodlord, X, 3 and a green for a 3/3 Tyranid with Ravenous. When it enters the battlefield, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of other target creatures you control. Clamavus, 4 and a green for a 3/3 Human Tyranid Artificer with Proclaimer Hailer. Each creature you control gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on it. Haruspex, 3 and a green for a 2/2 Tyranid with Rapacious Hunger. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Haruspex. Haruspex is another way of saying it. Devouring Monster, tap, remove X +1/+1 counters from this, add X mana of any one color. Hierophant Biotitan, 10 green for 12/12 Tyranid. Frenzied Metabolism. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may remove any number of +1/+1 counters from among the creatures you control. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each counter removed this way. Vigilance Reach Ward 2. Titanic. This can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Hormigaunt Horde. X and a green for a 1/1 Tyranid with Ravenous. Endless Swarm. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 and a green. If you do, return Hormigaunt Horde from your graveyard to your hand. Lictor, 3 and a green for 3/3 Tyranid with Flash. Pheromone Trail. When Lictor enters the battlefield, if a creature entered the battlefield under an opponent's control this turn, create a 3/3 green Tyranid Warrior creature token with Trample. Nexos, 1 and a green for 2/2 Human Tyranid Advisor. With Strategic Coordinator, basic lands you control have tap, add colorless, so 2 colorless. Spend this mana only on costs that contain X. Old One-Eye, 5 and a green for 6/6 Legendary Tyranid. Trample. Other creatures you control have Trample. When Old One-Eye enters the battlefield, create a 5/5 green Tyranid creature token. Fast Healing. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard 2 cards. If you do, return Old One-Eye from your graveyard to your hand. Sporocyst, XX green, for a 0/0 Tyranid with Ravenous, Defender, and it has the ability Spore Chimney. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for up to X basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Termagant Swarm, X and a green for a 0/0 Tyranid with Ravenous. Deadly Frenzy. Whenever Termagant Swarm dies, create a number of 1/1 green Tyranid creature tokens equal to Termagant Swarm's power. Wow. Tervagon, X 1 and a green, for a 0/0 Tyranid with Ravenous. Trample. Spawn Termagants. Whenever Tervagon deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green Tyranid creature tokens. Toxicrene. 3 and a green for a 2/4 Tyranid with Reach and Death Touch. It has Hypertoxic Miasma. All lands have tap, add 1 mana of any color, and lose all other abilities. Tyrant Guard. Tyrant Guard, X 2 and a green for a 3/3 Tyranid with Ravenous. Field Wall, sacrifice Tyrant Guard. Creatures you control with counters on them gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Adelan Jackal, 1 red and a green for a 2/2 human Tyranid Scout. Trample and Haste, has the ability Skilled Outrider. Whenever Adelan Jackal deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Deathleaper Terror Weapon. 2 red and a green for 3/3 legendary creature Tyranid with Flash, Haste, and Flesh Hooks. Creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn have double strike. Okay. The First Tyrannic War. It's a saga with 3 chapters for 2 green, blue, red. Chapter 1, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If its mana cost contains X, it enters for the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of lands you control. Wow. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, double the number of each kind of counter on target creature you control. Oh, that could get pretty crazy pretty quickly. Gargoyle Flock. 2 green, blue. For a 2/2 Tyranid Gargoyle with flying is Sky Swarm. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature entered the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 1/1 blue Tyranid Gargoyle creature token with flying. Gearson Storm, Kellermore. 1 blue and a red for a 3/2 legendary Tyranid Human with Ward 2. It has 3 auto stubs. Whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, Gearson Starn deals 2 damage to that permanent or player. Malanthrope. 1 green blue for a 2/2 Tyranid with flying. Scavenge the Dead. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature card exiled this way. Mawlock. X red-green for a 2/2 Tyranid with Ravenous. Terror from the Deep. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Ravener. X blue-green. Or X green-blue, rather, for a 0/0 Tyranid with Flash. Ravenous. This creature enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, draw a card when it enters. When it enters the battlefield, target creature attacks target opponent this turn if able. Shadow in the Warp. 1 red-green enchantment. First creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, Shadow in the Warp deals 2 damage to that player. Tyranid Harridan. 4 green-blue for a 4/4 Tyranid with flying and ward 4. Wow. Freaking Gargoyles. Whenever or another Tyranid you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 blue Tyranid Gargoyle creature token with flying. Tyranid Prime. 1 green-blue for 0/4 Tyranid with Evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has power or toughness greater than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It has Synapse creature. Or a Synapse creature. Other creatures you control have Evolve. Whoa. That can get really big really fast, and so can everything else. Winged Hive Tyrant. 3 blue-red for a 4/4 Tyranid with flying and haste. The Will of the Hive Mind. Other creatures you control with counters on them have flying and haste. Well, that's pretty nutty, especially with some of the other things. Zoanthrope. X blue-red for 0/0 Tyranid with Ravenous, flying, and Ward 2 is Warp Blast. When Zoanthrope enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to any target. Starstorm. X red, instant. Starstorm deals X damage to each creature, cycling 3. It's an oldie from, let's say Onslaught. Seems right. Abundance. 2 green, enchantment. If you would draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land and reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen type. Put that card into your hand and put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in any order. Death's Presence. 5 and a green, enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. Hardened Scales. Oh, nice. I was about to say, it would be great if Hardened Scales was in here. Also, the Ozolith, or the Ozolith, either version of them would go really well in this. Hardened Scales. For green, you get an enchantment with, if one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. That many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on it instead. That's it. Icon of Ancestry. 3-mana artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1. Free and tap. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from the chosen type from among them. Put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. We have Cinderglade, which is the red-green duel that checks if you have 2 or more basic lands. Exotic Orchard. Taps for 1 mana of any color a land opponent controls could produce. Game Trail. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a mountain or forest from your hand. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped, and then taps for red or green. Temple of Abandon, it's the red-green temple. Temple of Epiphany, it's the blue-red temple. Temple of Mystery, it's the green-blue temple. Opal Palace, taps for colorless, and then 1 tap, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. If you spend this mana to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with the number of additional +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. Path of Ancestry. Land enters the battlefield tap for 1 mana of your commander's color identity. When it's spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. Rugged Highlands. It's enters the battlefield tapped. You gain a life when it enters the battlefield, and then taps for a red or green. Terramorphic Expanse. It's the same as Evolving Wilds. Tap, sacrifice it. Search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Thornwood Falls. It's the green-blue gain land. It enters tapped as well. We have some mountains. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matching mountains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matching islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 matching for us. And we've got our display commander alternate version of Swarm Lord. It's very shiny. Although in a slightly different way from the other stuff. We have some 1/1 Tyranids, 10 of them. Fact. On the back, a 5/5 Tyranid, some 3/3 Tyranid warriors with trample. Let's see, and then 6 Tyranid gargoyles that are 1/1s with flying. Keep in mind the surge foiling is only on the front. So it's a whole thing. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on this adventure into the 40K universe with these Tyranids. As always, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And let me know down in the comments what is your favorite faction from 40K. My personal favorite is the Dark Eldar, also known as the Drukari, I think. I also liked the Eldar, which are now known as the Aldari, I think. They changed the names like 10 or so years ago. I started playing in the mid-90s, so I don't really know what they renamed a bunch of things to. I haven't really paid attention to it. I still play every now and then, but I mostly collect the miniatures at this point. Yeah. Until next time, stay awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.